Everyone, I know most of you. My name is Karin Onkka. I'm the Outdoor Education Director at YMCA Camp DeBoer. We're affiliated with the Ashland Family YMCA. So for this presentation, I just wanted to go through two little examples of something that Libby and I talked over that seemed appropriate for this study. A little bit about some trauma-informed care response and a little bit about a site pivot. So let's talk about the trauma-informed care responses. So we have evening programs. We had a couple of like really loud, but also very fun for most of our participants, evening programs in our lodge. And we kind of noticed as we were looking around, some students were looking for a quiet area or some support. And we later received some feedback from chaperones and teachers. By the way, they did find these spaces. We have two foyers that are closed in with glass doors. So they were able to kind of like sit down. We got them some coloring cages, but that was like a quick fix that we thought needs more attention. Because we received feedback from teachers and our chaperones who are parent chaperones. A few of the students didn't feel safe in such a loud environment, you know, as you imagine in your own site, the lodge or the dining room being just a loud space and in general. And then they became dysregulated and there was some crying at bedtime. The other example we're going to look at is some day programs that we were running towards the end of our season. It was getting pretty cold and snowy, but we had an aide working with some Spanish speaking students, and she came up and she said they're not really engaged and they're talking about not coming back for the future days. And you know, I don't think they're totally comfortable. I don't know that they're just cold. I think they're just uncomfortable, and we couldn't really identify how, why, but I said, absolutely, we have something to offer them based on something that we had created based on our first thing that happened. So go ahead, Libby. What we did was we employed our dog, Tarmac. He is our emotional support dog, and also a YMCA Camp DeBoer staff member. What we did was we created a chill zone in our staff lounge, which is adjacent to the lodge and also very close by to our field program lesson areas. So students have the option to come in and work with Tarmac, and he is a trained dog. He's from Dogs for Better Lives, and I'll introduce you to his handler in a minute. But in the chill zone, we have some noise canceling headphones to loan out. So we did find like some of the kids just came in and grabbed some headphones, went back out to the kind of loud, fun activity. They wanted to be part of it. They just didn't want the volume. We also had some quiet games and some coloring going on the floor and at our little tables. Also during field studies, our staff have the option to radio for Tarmac. And Tarmac can kind of swing by, or if that student just is really not having the lesson, they can go off and help with another student or another adult so that there's a they can go do some Tarmac tasks, like he has to practice his homework and he has to get fed every once in a while or brushed. So this is kind of one of our trauma-informed approaches on campus at Camp DeBoer. Next slide. So he just appears in all of our information books and slideshows just as a regular staff member. So he's a full-time staff member. He was trained and provided for by Dogs for Better Lives, as I mentioned. He has these specific tasks, deep pressure therapy and a grounding touch. Like just his passive presence, just even walking through campus sometimes helps to reduce stress and assist students with like homesickness and when they are having difficulty self-regulating. So he lives and works at Camp DeBoer with Summer, or Sky is her camp name, who facilitates all of his task work. Next slide. He's even included our classroom lesson slideshow. So, you know, our whole staff, and there's Mac, his camp name is Mac, and Sky is right next to him. And so, yeah, in other words, the students, teachers, parents are all made aware that there's going to be a dog on campus, and we ask about extreme fear or allergies. Also, we just found that he stays on his leash on day one, and then once the initial excitement wears off, he can kind of just be like any other staff member, where he's expected to be around, and there's not just like a rushing over to greet him or interact with him. He's just kind of in the background more as the days continue at outdoor school. Next slide. So he has these specific tasks and he has these commands. So like lap, lays on your lap. The squish is being demonstrated by that above picture where he's sitting in the crook of the camper's legs. And cabins can also sign up to have a bedtime visit by Tarmac. That really helps them to settle. He can he basically just is on the floor and he gets mobbed by the kids before they go to bed. This is a picture of Summer Brandon, who is his caregiver, and she is the Camp DeBoer program manager. Next slide. We have this is all part of a flyer that exists in all of the cabins, and it's up in other places around campus, so that the students and the adults on campus can become familiar with what he likes and how to interact with Tarmac, such as not giving him food. And next slide. So some of the evaluated benefits that we found by creating this little zone and this Tarmac time is it creates a space where we can interact with students outside of the program. So for example, I was present for the 2 Spanish-speaking students who came over, and you know, they just, I don't know what was happening with their level of comfort, but we just kind of changed the topic. We started talking about Halloween and their Halloween costumes, and even the way that they interacted with Tarmac was a little bit like, you know, different cultures have different relationships with domestic animals, I would say. And they appreciated the opportunity, but I think it really created an opportunity for us to just sit down with them one-on-one, like, hey, how's it going? We really want you to come back, and you know, how are you feeling? And so just a very informal setting, and you know, Tarmac's kind of the icebreaker, helping them to open up. And then we can continue to use the space to collect quantitative and qualitative data, how many students participated in this option, and why. And next slide. Next thing we'll talk about is the site pivot that we just kind of had a quick evaluation on. So in spring, during our water lesson, we explore the big marsh at the back of our property, and students find a lot of frogs. And then when we started our fall session, I just kind of picked up our classroom slideshow and said, oh yeah, that's ready to go. And then these incoming students had seen a lot of pictures, or a couple of pictures, of all these frogs and students interacting with the frogs. I'm like, oops. It was something that they were super excited about. We did a little activity at the end where they wrote down what they're looking forward to and what they're hoping to learn. We opened up all these little papers later, and we're like, oh my God, they're super excited about the frogs. Well, I've heard fewer and fewer frogs chirping as the season has worn on, naturally. Wow, they're super excited about seeing these frogs that they're probably not going to find. So our marsh is dry in the fall for our program, and there were no frogs anywhere. So during staff week, so we did our classroom week first, and then we were in our staff week, staff training week. Wow, we need to pivot. So let's pivot to the lake for a wonder walk and some plant explorations, and then let's offer up some canoeing, and that will be a unique thing that we can do in the fall. Next slide. So these are the pictures that were embedded in the slideshow, and these are like postage size stamp on, like they're part of a collage, but somehow kids really gravitated these two, and they were in different parts of the slideshow. It's just kind of funny what kids are going to notice and what they're going to get excited about. But these were the only 2 pictures in the whole slideshow. That is quite long, but somehow this really sunk in as an image that they were going to be doing this. So I just want to share that with you. Next slide. But then what we ended up doing was, staff week, what do we do now? Let's figure this out. Well, we got in and identified some of the aquatic plants, and we found that there was a lot to explore in the Wonder Walk, like these animal tracks. So the kids got to go out in canoes and just kind of wonder aloud. It wasn't very structured, which is something that we're trying to bring to campus based on our Learning in Places cohort, which some of you are part of. So here's all the kids in the canoes, and as you can see in the red canoe picture, there's usually an adult in the middle or adults around. I was lifeguarding, very safe. And next slide. So the wetlands lesson was divided into 2 things. They explored by boat, the canoes on the left, and then they explored on land in their boots. And both groups were whooping and hollering and just enjoying, like, either just how peaceful it was out on the lake, or all these funny things that they were finding, like fish heads. And then we noticed when we were doing this on staff week that there was a fair amount of trash along the shore. So we started this thing called Trash Island, and the kids loved contributing to Trash Island. So by the end of the season, we had quite a bit of trash that we then hauled out. So very, very unstructured. Once they kind of knew some aquatic plants and some things to look for and some areas, some boundaries that would keep them safe. That's what our water wetland lesson looked like. And next slide. And I think the evaluative benefits there was, as a staff, we really listened to that student feedback. They were very excited about the frogs. We had to find something equally exciting and kind of divert their attention. And it created an opportunity for me as the director to include returning staff to weigh in on that student feedback and pivot our location and plan the exploration portion of the field study. So a couple of my staff ended up writing that lesson plan. And then it allowed for a field study discussion about where are the frogs right now. And I think that's it on my slides, and I am open for questions. Yeah, because I'm not his primary handler, Summer, Brandon is, has a lot of background in trauma-informed care and social emotional learning. I have asked these questions because before I could really enthusiastically bring Tarmac into the program, I had to kind of know some of these answers to these questions. But she said that, you know, Tarmac can kind of read energy and naturally steers away. He's got so many people saying, come here and I want to pet you, that it does create like a natural flow for him to go to the kids that really want to interact and avoid the kids that really don't. I did work at Willowwood Ranch where the ranch dogs were terrifying to some of our participants. So I'm really sensitive to, like, I do not want this to be the case. So day one, he's on the leash. And then we're just asking all the adults on campus, just please let us know if you see a child who's this is just not going to work for, and we're going to really work hard. But so far to date, and he's been involved in our camp programs in the summer, we have not encountered that type of fear that I encountered at Willowwood Ranch, because these are working ranch dogs and they needed to be out roaming around and protecting. But good question, yeah.
I guess I could ask my question about the site pivot. When you said that you opened up pieces of paper to see what the students were interested in, and all of them said frogs, can you tell me a little bit more about that mechanism that you used and like when you gathered that information from the kids?
Yes, and I will credit Bethany with this. Something I learned at Rogo DS is it's a snowball game, so we borrowed it. At the end of our classroom lesson, they have a little sheet. It's just a tiny piece of paper about that big, and we write, "What are you excited about for outdoor school?" And then they wad it up into a little paper, and then they toss it in the air, and then we go around and collect them at the end of the time. And then the other thing is, what do you hope to learn? So we're asking them 2 questions during the classroom lesson and really trying to listen to that feedback and incorporate it.